Good evening. Here is the world news from BGI TV, Babadbagede Imo TV. I am Morire Rabila Lawal. First are the major headlines for the world news. Southern Middle-Belt leaders reject interim government. More than 300 communities in Ondo State can't access commercial banks. Miyetti Allah seeks protections of members' interest in new CBN cash policy. Narocracies, hoodlums plotting attacks on banks in Kwara. ICPC arrest FCMB, Stanbic IBTC officials for blocking ATMs from dispensing New Naira Note. Kaduna LP reps candidate escapes assassination, 2 killed. Government killed 2 security operatives, set ablaze Nigerian police. Ibadan, 1 dies, another injured in soldiers' shootouts. On foreign, 21 dead in South Sudan Elders attack on eve of Pope's visit. Finally, on sport from boxing this hour. Joshua eager to reclaim world titles. Now the news in detail. Leaders of various ethnic groups in 4 of the 6 geopolitical zones of Nigeria have vowed to resist any plans to scuttle the forthcoming general election. They also warned those planning to impose an interim government on Nigerians to bury the idea. The leaders under the auspices of Southern and Middle Belt Leaders Forum stated this in a communique issued at the end of their extraordinary meeting held in Abuja and made available to newsmen yesterday. The group that any attempt to scuttle the 2023 general elections and impose an interim government will be vehemently resisted. Delegates to the meeting included former governors, ministers, federal and state legislators, community leaders, top politicians and professionals, as well as women and youth leaders from the South and Middle Belt regions. Those in attendance also included Chief Cornelius Adebayo, Dr. Chukwuemeka Ezefe, Oba Oladipo Olaiton, Emmanuel Nwayang, Chief John Nia Nwodo, Professor Iyechukwu Madubuike, Chief Shola Ebiseni, Professor ABC Nwosu, and Chief Dr. Simon Okeke. They also included Mazi Dixon Iroibu, Professor Charles Nkweku, Ambassador Eddie Onoa, His Royal Highness Eze Nwosu Ibe, Honorable Mrs. Sarah Doctori, Chief Edozie Ezugo, and many more. Also in attendance were Engineer Ben Akaka, Mrs. Beatrice Eze, National Treasurer Ohaneze Ndigo, Mrs. Daba Obioha, Mrs. Elizabeth A. Jibrin, Chief Dewey Douglas Naimba, Engineer Ben Akaka, Dele Ferrotimi, Prince Michael Okaremi, Honorable Basi Ekefe. The meeting deliberated extensively on the state of the nation and the 2023 general election, as well as other worrisome issues, particularly the current hardship Nigerians are facing due to the unavailability of the new currency note, the fuel situation, the problems with permanent voters card PVC collection. To the next story. Nicholas Tofowomo, the senator representing Odo South in the Nigerian Senate, has called for the immediate arrest and prosecution of the governor of Central Bank, Mr. Godwin Emefiele, for disobeying the resolution of the federal legislature. Tofowomo on Saturday in a release noted that in his senatorial district, for example, there were many unbanked residents with more than 300 communities not having access to commercial banks. The Senate had urged the CBN on January 23rd to extend the deadline for the exchange of ordinary notes on May 31st, 2023, and similarly directed the Apex Bank to open an exchange window for people that did not have bank accounts to deposit their old notes in exchange for new notes. But the CBN governor failed to obey the Senate directive. In the release, Tofowomo said the CBN governor's refusal had resulted to the untold hardship being faced by Nigerians over the scarcity of the new Naira note. Moving on to the next story. The Miyetti Allah Cattle Breeders Association of Nigeria, MACBEN, an umbrella body of Nigeria pastoralists, has urged the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, to mainstream the interests of pastoralists in the implementation of cashless policy. Spokesman Mohammed Nura made the call in a statement on Friday in Abuja. Mr. Nura also called on the CBN to extend the deadline for the change of currency to cater for those pastoralists and small-scale farmers living in the rural areas with no access to banking infrastructure. He said that the association observed that the policy had crippled many of its members because of the insurgency in the northeast and banditry in northwest and other related security issues. He said that those in the livestock business and who were excluded from the current banking system in the country, coupled with the debilitating network challenges and economic activities in the remotest areas, had been badly affected. He said that MACBAN supported the federal government in its current policy that sought to stem money laundering, terrorism financing, unregulated liquidity in the market, and to curtail the use of money in politics. The police say they have uncovered plot by some hoodlums to attack commercial banks in Kwara State as a result of the hardship trailing the new Naira policy of the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN. The spokesman for the Kwara State Police Command, SP Ajayi or Kasami, disclosed this in a statement on Saturday. According to him, intelligence available to the command showed that hoodlums have affected plans to replicate the lawlessness that was unleashed on some banks in some states in the country, owing to the crisis emanating from the Naira note swap. While the government is doing all within its powers to normalize the situation, the command wishes to assure the good people of Kwara State of its capacity to deal ruthlessly with any lawbreaker. Criminals are therefore advised to shelve any such dastardly act, an idea he added. Okasumi said the Commissioner of Police, Paul Odama, had ordered aggressive patrols of commercial banks and other financial facilities across the state. Criminal elements in the state should change their mind, as anyone arrested would be met with heavy consequences, he concluded. To the next story. The Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission, ICPC, has arrested officials of two of the commercial banks for allegedly sabotaging the circulation of the new Naira note. Information gathered that Stanbic IBTC and FCMB officials were arrested in Abuja and South States for fraudulently keeping the new Naira notes. 7 points of sale, that's POS operators and a security guard in Osun State, were also arrested for charging exorbitant commissions for cash. Information further gathered that ICPC operatives arrested the branch service head of Stanbic IBTC Bank, Dede Branch, Abuja, for a deliberate refusal to upload cash into the branch automated teller machines, ATM, when the cash was available and people were queuing at the ATMs. Also, the ICPC operatives arrested the operations manager of the FCMB Oshobo, the Osun State capital, for allegedly blocking ATMs from dispensing. The ICPC disclosed this via a statement issued by its spokesperson, Azuka Ogugwa, on Friday. Moving on to the notes. Labour Party's House of Representative candidate for Lere Federal Constituency in Kaduna State, Suleiman Tambaya, on Friday night escaped an assassination attempt as gunmen invaded his residence as Gure village in Lere, a local government area of the state, killing 2 persons. The incident, correspondent gathered, occurred at about 10 p.m. when the House of Representative candidate was away at the political meeting in Kaduna, the state's capital. This is coming barely 3 months after gunmen killed the party's woman leader, Mrs. Victoria Chimtex, in a residence in the Kaura local government area of the state in November 2022. The hoodlums also shot Victoria's husband in the leg and instantly rushed into an undisclosed medical facility where he was said to be receiving treatment. Narrating his ordeal to a correspondent on Saturday, Tambaya said that for divine intervention and a prompt response from the members of the community and local vigilante, it would have been a different story by now. He also said the police in Lere responded to the distress call. Tambaya said, "I was planning to go home on Friday, but I spoke to our governorship candidate and he asked me to come and see him. That was when I diverted and came to Kaduna." To the next story. Gunmen have attacked some state security operatives on patrol on Old Enugu Onitsha Road in Abagana community in Njikoka, local government area of Anambra State and killed 2 of the operatives. Narrating the incident, an eyewitness and resident of the community who did not disclose his identity said the gunmen suspected to be members of a cult group attacked the vigilante operatives at about 11:30 p.m. on Friday night at the checkpoint near AP filling station in the area. The eyewitness said he was returning from Oka, the state capital, and reaching AP filling station. He saw the vigilante operatives who, while they were stopping him, were hit sticks on his car. Moving on to the next story. Soldiers have reportedly shot a motorcyclist amid the protest against fuel and naira note scarcity at the Akpata area in Ibadan, the Oyo State capital. The protest, which happened across the major cities of the state, grounded activities and had youth carrying placards expressing their grievances on the situation since Friday. According to an eyewitness as reported by Nigerian Tribune, the shooting incident happened in the early hours of Saturday after men of the Nigerian Army were deployed on the street to douse the tension in the state. We saw soldiers' vehicles pass through Brent, and all we heard were gunshots. Everyone ran for their lives. Some lay on the floor to prevent stray bullets, the eyewitness was quoted to have said. The eyewitness added that there was also a female casualty in the shootout who is currently receiving treatment at the Lafia Hospital in the NNPC area. All effort to reach the State Command's Police Public Relations Officer, DSP Adewale Oshifeso, for comments on the alleged shootout proved abortive as of the time of filing these reports. Moving on to the foreign story. At least 21 people have been killed in a cattle raid in South Sudan on the eve of a visit by Pope Francis to encourage peace in the conflict-ridden country, local authorities said. Francis is scheduled to arrive on Friday, which is yesterday, for a 3-day pilgrimage of peace with the Archbishop of Canterbury and the moderator of the General Assembly of the Church of Scotland. The church leaders are seeking to promote reconciliation and forgiveness in a predominantly Christian country still burdened by chronic armed violence in the aftermath of a civil war. On Thursday, armed herders killed 21 civilians in a reprisal attack on a rival cattle camp in Kajo-Keji, County of Central Equatoria, the County Commissioners Office said. The Commissioner of Kajo-Keji County condemns in the strongest terms possible the attack on the cattle camp and the massacre of the innocent civilians in a barbaric act of revenge. It's a statement issued on Thursday said. Justin Welby, the Archbishop of Canterbury, said he was horrified by the attack on the eve of his visits. Lastly, on the world news is sport from Boxing Arena. Anthony Joshua's promoter, Eddie Hearn, has insisted that the British Nigerian is desperate to reclaim the world titles and become a 3-time heavyweight champion as he returns to the ring in April against Jermaine Franklin. Joshua will look to resurrect his career against the American at London's O2 Arena in what will be his first outing since consecutive losses to Alexander Usyk. Defeat of Franklin will likely remove the Watford Warrior from the world title picture, but promoter N is confident the former 2-time unified heavyweight champ will return to winning ways and style. It's a really tough fight with loads of pressure to come back, because if AJ doesn't win this fight, then we've got a major problem. I believe you will see a statement from the guy who is very dangerous, very motivated to become a 3-time heavyweight world champion, and told BBC. That ends the world news this hour from BGI TV. Before we go, some major headlines. 2023, Southern Middle Belt leaders reject interim governments. More than 300 communities in Ondo State can't access commercial banks. Mayorti Allah seeks protection of members' interest in new CBN cash policy. We also brought to you hoodlums plotting attacks on banks in Kwara State. Lastly, on sport, Joshua eager to reclaim world titles. For more updates on YouTube, our handle is Gbagede Imo TV. Kindly subscribe and click on the notification bell, select option all to access our broadcast. On Facebook, Gbagede Imo with Alawi Adebayo. Please like and follow the page. On Instagram, Gbagede Imo _22. For advert placement of your goods and services, coverage of events and functions, please dial the phone number streaming on your screen. for advert placements only. Thank you for watching. I am Morire Rabila Lawal. Have a wonderful weekend.
Oh, na, na, na. If you want to know what's going on in city, or you want to listen to the latest news and gist, no stress, oh, just tune to BGI TV. BGI TV.